The snow had just started to fall in Winterfell when the Raven arrived. Lord Eddard Stark held the letter with cold fingers, his breath fogging the air as he read it in silence. The words were simple, but heavy. Jon Arryn was dead, and Robert Baratheon, the King of the Seven Kingdoms, was riding north to see him. Catelyn watched Ned from across the room. "He's coming to make you hand," she said softly. Ned nodded, but he didn't smile. His mind was already racing. He had kept many things buried for years, things about Lyanna, about Jon Snow, and about the lies he told to keep them all safe. Becoming Hand of the King meant going south, back into the world of politics and secrets. A world he had left behind for good reasons, but there was another thought. What if Robert found out the truth about Jon? What if he learned that the boy was not Ned's bastard, but Rhaegar Targaryen's true-born son? Ned knew Robert hated the Targaryens. He had killed Rhaegar himself on the Trident. If he ever found out the truth, Jon would not be safe. None of them would. That night, Ned stood in the Godswood, praying under the old weirwood tree. The face carved into the bark watched him with red eyes, silent and still. "I don't want to do this," Ned whispered, "but I will not let them die for honor." When Robert arrived, he came with a smile and open arms. The king had grown fat and tired, but his spirit was loud. "Ned, my old friend, my brother," he shouted, embracing him. "We were meant to rule together. Come south with me. Be my hand." Ned agreed, but not because he wanted to help Robert. No, this time, he would go south to protect his family. And if that meant betraying a friend, so be it. On the road to King's Landing, Ned began to gather information. He listened more than he spoke. He watched Lord Varys and Peter Baelish with careful eyes. He even met with Renly Baratheon in secret, learning that there were whispers about Robert's children not being his. He didn't share those whispers with Robert. He buried them. Ned began writing letters, secret ones, to Stannis Baratheon and other lords he could trust. He warned them to prepare. Something was coming. He wasn't sure what yet, but he would not be caught unaware. In King's Landing, Ned kept his head down. He did not confront Cersei about her children. He did not show mercy to Littlefinger. He played the game slowly, carefully, and he never took his eyes off the throne. Then the moment came. Robert went on a hunt and never came back. A boar gored him in the belly and he lay dying. On his deathbed, Robert tried to name Ned as regent for Joffrey. Ned took the quill, nodded, and wrote a different name. He wrote Stannis Baratheon, he signed it, he sealed it, and he hid it away. When Robert died, chaos broke out. Joffrey claimed the throne. Cersei moved fast, faster than Ned expected. She had the guards, the gold, and the crown. But Ned had something else he had prepared. With the help of Renly, who had fled the city to gather men, and with secret support from Stannis, Ned made a bold move. He did not go to the throne room. He went to the gates of the Red Keep with men loyal to the north, and he took Sansa and Arya back by force. He did not fight for the Iron Throne. He fought to get his daughters out alive. Joffrey ordered his arrest. Cersei called him a traitor, but Ned was already gone, heading north with his girls, with a wound in his heart that would never heal. He had betrayed Robert, but he had saved his family, and now war was coming. Ned rode through the King's Road with Sansa and Arya clutched close. The chill in the air, nothing compared to the fire that now burned behind him in King's Landing. Every hoofbeat felt like a heartbeat skipped. He had done the unthinkable, betrayed the king, left the capital, stolen the king's daughters. At least that's how the Lannisters would tell it. But they weren't the king's daughters. They were his, and he wouldn't let them die for Robert's lies or his own. Sansa had cried the first 2 days. She didn't understand why they left so suddenly, why Joffrey hadn't come to say goodbye. Arya, on the other hand, sensed the danger. She asked no questions but kept her blade close. Needle, she called it. Ned had seen the anger in her eyes when she realized they were running. Arya wasn't the crying type. She was the fighting kind. They had 5 guards with them, men Ned trusted from the north. But he knew they weren't enough. Not with the Lannisters breathing down their necks. Word would spread fast. Cersei wouldn't take this as a slight. She'd take it as war, and war was what she would get. In the south, Renly was already moving with his banners. He had taken Loras Tyrell and a dozen other knights and disappeared into the Reach. Stannis, ever quiet and cold, had begun preparing ships on Dragonstone. The Baratheon brothers were turning on each other before Robert's body had even gone cold. Ned had known this might happen. He'd even counted on it. A divided enemy was easier to outpace, but what he hadn't expected was what came next. Ravens, one after another. Winterfell. Trouble. Robb must march. The messages came like a storm. First from Maester Luwin, then from Howland Reed, then from the Eyrie. Catelyn had taken Tyrion Lannister prisoner. Ned nearly threw the raven into the fire. He hadn't told her. He had kept all of it from her, for her safety, for the children. But now she had acted on her own, and the Lannisters had a reason to raise swords. This wasn't just about Sansa anymore. It wasn't just Arya or Jon. It was war. He pressed on, northward, faster. The nights grew colder, the road harder. They passed burned farms, butchered cattle, signs of men already moving. The realm had already begun to break. And then one morning, a rider came to them, dusty, bloodied, and half-starved. Roderick Castle. He dropped to his knees. "Lord Stark," he panted, "Robb rides to war. He's called the Banners. The North answers." Ned's breath left him like a stab to the chest. "My son, how many men?" "Close to 20,000. They march for River Run. The Lannisters have taken your wife's father. Lord Hoster lies dying, and they want blood." Ned nodded slowly. Robb, just a boy, now leading a northern host. He had raised him to be strong, to be just, to be brave, but not for this. Not for war. Still, it was too late now. War had found them. And Jon. Ned thought of Jon every day. The boy was at the wall. Safe, maybe. Safer than them. But the truth about him, the truth still haunted him. Because something else had happened. Varys had known. Before Ned left King's Landing, the spider had come to him in secret, whispering in the dark. "I know about the boy," Varys had said, voice smooth as silk. "And more importantly, others are beginning to know too." Ned had stared him down, voice cold as the north. "If you speak a word, I won't," Varys interrupted. "Not yet. But lies rot faster in the south, Lord Stark. And soon, someone will dig deep enough to find the truth you've buried." Ned had said nothing. He had simply turned and left. But now, as he rode toward the edge of the neck with 2 daughters half broken by fear, a kingdom burning behind him, and a son marching into battle, the truth weighed heavier than ever. Jon wasn't just Rhaegar's son. He was the last hope to unite the realm. But no one would follow a Targaryen. Not yet. Not while the wolves and lions tore each other apart. Ned had to buy him time. He had to keep the secret buried a little longer. Just long enough for the North to rise and for the truth to be more useful than dangerous. Just long enough to win. As they crossed the last hill before the Moat Cailin, Ned Stark looked over the frozen lands of the North, his home. He had betrayed a king, left behind his honor, and lit the fuse of a kingdom-wide war. But his children were alive, and now it was time to protect them. Not with lies, but with steel. Even if it meant the whole world calling him traitor. Even if it meant dying for it. The ravens were restless in the towers of Winterfell. Their wings flapped in the cold wind as if they sensed what was coming: blood, war, and betrayal. Ned Stark sat in the great hall, his daughters resting upstairs, his bannermen arriving by the hour. The hall was filled with voices. Some were loyal, some were loud, some were dangerous. "Robb is marching to River Run," Roose Bolton said quietly, standing near the fire. "He moves fast for a boy. But the Lannisters move faster." Ned didn't reply. He had raised Robb to be a leader, not a warrior. But now the boy had to be both. Because Catelyn had lit a fire when she took Tyrion. And now Tywin Lannister marched with steel in his hands. Ned looked at the men in the room. Some wanted war, some wanted peace, but all wanted leadership. He cleared his throat. The room fell silent. "We didn't choose this war," Ned said. "But it's here now. I won't let the North burn while the South tears itself apart. We will not fight to claim the throne. We will fight to protect our own." A few nodded. Others looked unsure. But then the door opened. As a rider stumbled in, muddy, wounded, barely standing, he fell to his knees. "From the wall. Lord Stark, your son, Jon, he's vanished." The words were like a sword to the chest. "What do you mean, vanished?" Ned said sharply, rising. "Gone," the rider gasped, and left in the night, took nothing, left no word. Ned's heart raced. Jon wouldn't leave like that. Not without cause. Unless... Someone had found out. Far to the north, past the wall, Jon Snow rode alone through the snow-covered forest, Ghost padding beside him. His eyes were cold, focused. He had found the letter, buried deep in Maester Aemon's chamber. An old letter sealed with wax that had cracked over time, a name written on it, to Jon Targaryen. He hadn't believed it at first, but the pieces made sense. The lies, the looks, the silence whenever he asked about his mother. He wasn't Ned Stark's son, he was Rhaegar's. The son of the man Robert Baratheon had sworn to kill, and now Robert was dead. But if Cersei knew, if anyone in the South knew, he would never be safe, so he rode, not to run, but to find answers. He had to know who he truly was, and what he was meant to do. Back in the South, Cersei Lannister was not sitting idle. She stood in the Red Keep, staring at the Iron Throne with wildfire in her eyes. "He took the girls, betrayed Robert, lied to my face," she hissed. Joffrey sat beside her, still unsure, still a boy playing king. "Mother, he was our friend." "No," Cersei snapped. "He was a Stark, and Starks are wolves. Wolves bite when they feel cornered." She turned to Sir Meryn Trant. "I want every raven watched. I want riders on the King's Road. I want Sansa found, and if she's dead, bring me her head." Littlefinger stepped forward, smiling that snake-like smile. "What if I could offer you something better?" Cersei's eyes narrowed. "Speak." "Jon Snow," he whispered. "He's more than a bastard. Much more." Her lips parted. "Tell me everything." At River Run, Robb stood beside his mother, his sword still stained from the field. They had won their first skirmish, but the Lannisters had more men, more gold, more spies. He was no longer a boy, he was a commander, but he felt like a pawn. "I don't trust the phrase," Robb muttered. Catelyn nodded. "Nor should you, but we need their bridge. And if they betray us, then we remind them why the North is feared." But before they could speak again, another raven arrived, this time from Winterfell. Robb read it in silence, then looked up, his face pale. "Father wants us to return, now." "Why?" "Jon Snow has vanished." At Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon stood at the edge of the cliff, his red cape blowing in the wind. Beside him, Melisandre stared into the fire. "There is a boy in the north," she said. "He has the blood of kings, fire and ice both." Stannis said nothing. His jaw clenched. "He is not your enemy," Melisandre whispered. "He may be your sword." Stannis turned to her, eyes like stone. "Then we find him." In the north, as snow began to fall heavier, Ned Stark climbed the highest tower of Winterfell. He stared into the cold wind, his eyes searching the horizon. Jon was missing. War was coming. And every secret he had kept was slipping through his fingers like ice. But he had made his choice. So he had betrayed Robert. Now he had to protect what he still had left. Even if it meant losing everything else, the snow was thick beyond the wall, falling like ash from a dead sky. Jon Snow rode slowly, his breath fogging in the freezing air. Ghost moved ahead of him, red eyes glowing like embers in the mist. He had left Castle Black without a word, not even to Sam. The truth had broken something inside him, something quiet and deep. He wasn't a bastard, he wasn't Ned Stark's son, he was a Targaryen. And the realm would kill him for it. The letter had been hidden well. Old parchment, half-burned. But Maester Aemon must have known. He had seen Jon's face too many times with too much knowing in his eyes. Now the truth followed Jon like a shadow. He had no plan. Just a need to get far from the eyes of kings, queens, and blades sharpened for royal blood. The wild beyond the wall was dangerous, but the south was worse. South of the Neck, men killed for less than a name. He reached an abandoned wildling camp by nightfall. Ghost sniffed the air, quiet, cold. Safe for now. Jon lit a fire and sat down, his fingers numb. He took the letter out again. Jon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, rightful heir. Each word was a stone on his chest. His whole life had been built on a lie. He remembered all the times people had looked at him with scorn, called him Snow, treated him like he didn't belong. All the times he had tried to earn a place, to be a Stark, to be something. And now he wasn't Snow. He wasn't even a Stark. He was a dragon. And dragons burned everything they touched. He closed his eyes, slept, dreamed of fire and ice. In Winterfell, Ned stood before the fire, staring at the flames like they might answer him. Jon was gone. That truth hurt more than he admitted. It wasn't just about the boy. No, the boy was a man now. It was the weight of it all. The secret he'd carried since the Tower of Joy. The lie he had told to protect Lyanna's son, his nephew, his son in all the ways that mattered. Now Jon was out in the world, and the world was hunting. Rose Bolton entered the room silently. That man always moved like a shadow. "Lord Stark," Rose said, "there are whispers in the east. The Red Woman is searching. Stannis is on the move." Ned looked up. "And Cersei? She's offered gold to anyone who brings her the bastard alive or dead." Ned's jaw tightened. "I want riders sent north, quiet men, no banners. Find Jon before they do." Rose raised an eyebrow. "And if he doesn't want to be found?" Ned turned back to the fire. "Then bring him home anyway." Far south in King's Landing, Cersei paced like a lioness in a cage. "Littlefinger," she snapped. "Why haven't we found him?" Baelish only smiled. "Because the boy knows how to disappear. But secrets don't stay buried long, especially not royal ones." Cersei poured wine, hands shaking with fury. "If the realm finds out he's a Targaryen," Baelish finished for her, "then Joffrey's claim weakens, the south fractures, and the north becomes a fire we can't put out." She turned sharply. "Then burn the north, burn the wolves, burn every bastard who dares threaten my son." Baelish leaned in, voice soft. "Careful, my queen, some bastards have teeth." East of the wall, Jon woke to the sound of breathing that wasn't his own. He reached for Longclaw. "Easy," came a woman's voice. "If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead." She stepped from the trees, tall, wrapped in furs, eyes like frost. A spear in one hand, a shadowcat cloak on her shoulders, a wildling. "You're far from the wall," she said, "and not many crowboys wander out here alone. What are you running from?" Jon stood slowly. "I'm not running." She raised an eyebrow. "No? You ride like someone with a ghost on his back," Ghost growled low from the trees. The woman glanced at the direwolf and smiled. "That yours?" Jon nodded. "We're the last ones you want to fight," she snorted. "Everything out here wants to fight, even the snow." There was silence between them for a while. Then she asked, "What's your name?" Jon hesitated. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure what to say. Then, "Jon. Just Jon." The woman smirked. "Fine, just Jon. Follow me. There's a fire and food 2 hills north, but if you try anything, I'll gut you." He followed. Not because he trusted her, but because ghosts don't survive alone. In the dark forest beyond the wall, as wolves howled and dead things moved through the trees, a Targaryen walked among wildlings with a Stark sword at his side. And the realm had no idea that the war to come would not be over thrones, but over the truth. And truth in Westeros was the deadliest weapon of all. The wind howled like a beast as Jon followed the wildling woman through the frozen trees. Her name, he had learned, was Vila. She didn't say much, but she didn't need to. The way she walked, the way she held her spear, the way she glanced at every shadow, they all told him enough. She was used to surviving. They reached a small cave near a frozen stream where a fire flickered low. 2 other wildlings sat nearby, a one-eyed man with a rusted axe and a younger girl, barely older than Arya, sharpening a bone knife. All 3 of them watched Jon like he was a bear in a trap. Dangerous, but interesting. "Crow boy with a wolf," the one-eyed man muttered. "A rare thing. Might be luck, might be trouble." Vila dropped her furs beside the fire. "He's alone. That's trouble enough." Jon didn't sit. He stood near Ghost, who had taken position just behind him, ever silent, ever ready. "You're not like the rest of them," the younger girl said. "Crows don't leave the wall unless they're running. You're running." Jon didn't answer. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jon." "Snow?" He hesitated. "I don't know anymore." The wildlings exchanged glances. That was an odd answer, but they didn't press further. Not yet. Vila tossed him a chunk of dried meat. "You can stay for the night, but in the morning, you tell us why you're here. No lies or you leave." Jon took the meat. "Fair." Back in Winterfell, Ned stood on the battlements, watching as snow began to fall heavier. The castle felt colder than ever, not just from winter, but from the choices he had made. Betraying Robert had bought time, but only that. War now brewed across the realm. The Lannisters had set bounties on Stark men. Robb had won battles, yes, but each victory came with more blood, more hate, more risk, and now the truth about Jon, it was too close to the surface. Maester Luwin joined him quietly. "You still haven't told them." Ned didn't look away from the snow. "Told who?" "Robb, Sansa, Arya, about Jon, about who he really is." "They don't need that burden," Ned said softly. "Not yet. Not while the world is still full of blades," Luwin sighed. "Secrets are like winter, my lord. They always come, and they never come kindly." In King's Landing, Cersei paced before the Iron Throne. Rage pulsed through her veins like wildfire. Joffrey sat quietly on the throne, bored and bitter. The North defies us. The Riverlands bleed. The Baratheons war with each other. And now, rumors. Whispers about the bastard boy, about dragons. Joffrey snorted. "He's no threat, just a snowborn nothing." Cersei slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the hall. "Fools die young, Joffrey. Remember that." She turned to the gold cloaks. "Send riders to the wall, to every corner. I want that boy found. If he is what they say he is, we kill him before the truth becomes prophecy." Beyond the wall, Jon sat by the fire, his eyes distant, his heart heavy. When the others slept, Vela sat beside him. She looked at him for a long while before speaking. "You're not a crow anymore," she said. "But you're not one of us either. So who are you, really?" Jon looked into the fire. The truth wanted to come out. It clawed at his throat, but he was scared of what would follow. Still, the weight was too heavy to carry alone. "I was raised a Stark," he said quietly, "but I wasn't born one." Vela tilted her head. "My real father was Rhaegar Targaryen." She didn't react, not at first. "That makes you—" Jon nodded. "His son. Lyanna Stark's son. They lied to protect me." "Because Robert would have killed me," Vela exhaled. "The boy with the blood of dragons. And the wolves. That blood has cursed my life," Jon whispered. "I don't want crowns. I don't want thrones. I just want to understand what I'm meant to do." Vela stared at him, her voice serious. "You're meant to survive. That's the first truth." He nodded, silently grateful. But the peace didn't last long. That night, Ghost growled. The cave shook. Then came the sound. Bones crunching, a low hiss like death breathing through a hole in the world. The dead had found them. The one-eyed man screamed first. Something dragged him into the dark. The girl lunged with her blade, but icy claws ripped her back. Jon grabbed Longclaw, heart pounding. "Vila, move!" They ran through the back of the cave, Ghost slashing at whatever came behind them. Jon turned once, just long enough to see pale blue eyes staring through the smoke. White walkers, not whites, walkers. He hadn't seen one since the ranger died on his first days at the wall. But this one was watching him, not attacking, studying him, then it vanished into the mist. Jon didn't sleep that night. He just ran, and every step whispered the same truth into his ears. This war won't be won in the south, not with thrones. It will be won here, in the snow, in the silence, in the dark. The wind screamed across the top of the wall as Jon Snow stepped onto the icy platform once more, the wild behind him and the realm far below. Ghost padded silently at his side, his white fur already dusted with snow. Vila followed close behind, wrapped in thicker furs now, her eyes squinting against the cold. It had taken them weeks to circle back, avoiding Lannister patrols, whites, and worse. Jon didn't speak much during the journey. He had too many voices already in his head. Ned's warnings, Maester Aemon's riddles, his own questions clawing at his chest. Was he Jon Snow or Jon Targaryen? Did it matter if the world burned before he could decide? Castle Black loomed before them, smaller than he remembered. The fires were low, the gates barely manned. The brothers of the Night's Watch were fewer than ever, and they were afraid. Jon could see it in their eyes when the gates opened and men stared. They saw a deserter, a wildling, a wolf with ghosts at his heels. "Jon Snow," piped a voice from the rampart. Jon looked up. Samwell Tarly had grown thinner, paler, but his eyes still held that same kindness, that same worry. "You're alive," Sam said as he ran down the steps, disbelief in every step. John managed a tired smile. For now. They gathered in the library that night. John, Sam, Maester Aemon, and Vela, who refused to leave John's side. John told them everything. The White Walkers, the Wildlings, the cave, the dead, and finally, the truth. Sam dropped a book when John spoke the words, "Rhaegar was my father, Lyanna, my mother." Even Maester Aemon seemed shaken. "I suspected," he rasped, but hearing it, gods. "No one else knows," John said. "Only Ned, and maybe Varys. And now us," Sam said softly. Vela raised her head. "If people find out, the South will come for him." "They already are," John muttered. "But they're hunting the wrong war. While they fight over chairs, the dead are marching." Sam looked up, voice trembling. "Then we need to send word, ravens to every lord, every house. Tell them what you saw." "No," John said. "Not yet." Sam frowned. "Why not?" John looked into the fire. "Because they won't believe me. Not until they see the dead at their gates, and by then it'll be too late." In Winterfell, Ned Stark sat beside Bran's bed. The boy had not woken. Not since the fall. The maesters had done all they could, but still the boy slept, lost somewhere between dreams and snow. Catelyn had returned. Her face had hardened in the Riverlands. She no longer smiled, not even for Arya or Rickon. War had changed her. Loss had sharpened her. Robb had written to them. Victories in the West. Jaime Lannister captured. The Riverlands secure for now. But something else had come with the Raven. A torn piece of parchment smudged with blood. Jon Snow was alive and heading back to the Wall. Ned's heart had calmed for the first time in weeks, but deep inside, dread still lingered. Because the longer Jon lived, the closer the secret came to being exposed. If Stannis found out, he would claim Jon had a stronger right to the throne than any of the Baratheons. If Cersei found out, she'd send assassins, not soldiers, knives in the dark. Ned looked out over the snowy courtyard and whispered to himself, "You were supposed to be safe, hidden." In King's Landing, Littlefinger leaned across the table, his voice low and oily. "Your Grace, a raven was intercepted, headed north. It mentioned Jon Snow and dragons." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "Then the rumors are true." "They might be," Littlefinger said, his smirk returning. "And if they are, we have a problem." "Send riders to the Wall," she ordered. "Quietly. No banners. I want the boy dead before the snows melt." At Castle Black, Jon stood atop the wall looking north again. Sam had gone below to send one raven, just one, to Winterfell. He hadn't told him what it said. "I'm alive. We need to talk. Alone." He didn't know how Ned would respond, or if he'd come at all. But if the world was going to burn, Jon needed the truth. All of it. "Why here?" Vila asked, stepping beside him. Jon didn't answer at first. Then quietly, "Because this is where it started, and it's where it'll end." She looked at him. "Do you really believe that?" Jon turned to her. "I saw death walking, and I saw it watching me, like it knew who I was, like it was waiting." He paused, his voice heavy. "They're not just coming for Westeros. They're coming for me." In the distance, far beyond the Wall, deep in the shadows of the coldest woods, the White Walkers gathered, silent, pale, endless. And in the center, one rider stood taller, crowned with frozen horns, eyes like shattered ice. In his skeletal hand, he held a shard of dragon glass. He turned north, then slowly south, and began to march. The gates of Castle Black creaked open with a deep groan as snow blew in through the archway. Ned Stark rode through, his gray cloak soaked, his face set like stone. Behind him came only two riders, trusted men from Winterfell. No banners, no noise, just silence and the cold. Jon stood waiting in the courtyard. His heart thumped against his ribs like a war drum. This was the man who raised him, the man who lied to him, and yet the man who had never stopped protecting him. Their eyes met across the yard. For a long moment, neither said a word. Then Ned dismounted slowly, pulling his gloves off. He walked toward John with the slow weight of years pressing on his shoulders. "You're alive," he said finally. "So are you," John replied, his voice quiet, but steady. Ned nodded. "That's more than I expected these days." They walked together to the old armory, away from ears and eyes. Only Ghost followed, no one else. Inside, the fire crackled softly. John broke the silence first. "You knew?" "Yes. You lied to me, my whole life." Ned's face didn't change, but his voice grew softer. "I did." John took a breath. "Why?" Ned looked at him, eyes heavy. "Because Robert would have killed you, because your name, your blood, it's fire, John." And Robert hated fire. "He was my father's friend," John whispered bitterly. "And that's why it had to be me," Ned said. "Lyanna made me promise. In that tower, she was dying. She had you in her arms and she begged me. 'Protect him, Ned, promise me.'" John sat down, his legs felt weak. "I'm not your son," he said. "You are," Ned replied firmly. "In every way that matters. I raised you. I held you when you were sick. I taught you to fight. I gave you my name so you'd never be a target." He paused. "I loved you like you were mine, because you were." John stared at the fire. "Why now?" he asked. "Why come back?" "Because the truth's coming whether we want it or not," Ned said, "and I won't let you face it alone." John nodded slowly. "Thank you." A beat passed. "But there's more," Ned added. "Something I never told anyone." "Not even Catelyn." John looked up. "Your real name," Ned said quietly. It wasn't John. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small sealed paper. "Lyanna named you. Aemon Targaryen, after the old king. She said it was a name for peace, not war." John held the paper with trembling hands. The seal was old, cracked, faded, but the weight of it was heavier than steel. Aemon Targaryen. He didn't know how to feel. He was no king. He was just a boy who had tried to be a good man. That night they stood atop the wall together. Father and son, or uncle and nephew, depending on how one looked at it. The wind cut through their cloaks, but they didn't move. Below, the world lay still, waiting. John broke the silence. "There's something else. I saw them." Ned didn't need to ask who. "They're not stories," John said. "The White Walkers are real. They're marching, and they're not just coming for the wall, they're coming for everyone." Ned stared out into the black. "I believe you." John looked over. "Do you? Truly?" "I fought the Mad King. I saw dragons die. I've seen the South tear itself apart over lies and thrones. But I've never feared anything like I fear what's coming from the North." John nodded grimly. "We need to unite the realm," he said. "All of it, North and South, or none of us survive." Ned gave him a sad smile. "Then we'll need more than swords. We'll need something Westeros hasn't had in a long time." "What?" "Hope." But far to the south, hope was in short supply. In the shadows of an inn outside King's Landing, a man slid a dagger into his boot and adjusted his cloak. He had no name, no banners, just coin and an order. Kill Jon Snow. He had tracked him all the way to Castle Black. Soon he would ride for the Wall. And if the stories were true, if the boy really was a Targaryen, then Cersei wanted no trial, no truth, just blood. Meanwhile, beyond the Wall, the snow had stopped. The forest was dead quiet. Then came the cracking of ice. A single rider appeared, pale, silent, riding a dead elk with rotted skin. And behind him came the army, 10,000, then 20, and more. An endless wave of death. The Night King stood at their center, eyes fixed south. His time had come, and no name, Stark, Snow, or Targaryen, would stop the storm now. Snow fell thicker over Castle Black, blanketing the courtyard in white silence. The storm had not yet come, but the air carried a weight, as if the world held its breath. In the war room, Jon Snow stood over a map of the North, candles flickering against the stone walls. By his side stood Ned Stark, older than when he first came to Castle Black, but somehow sharper now, like the cold had carved him into something harder. Beside them, Sam shuffled through scrolls, Vela kept to the shadows, and Maester Aemon wheezed softly by the fire. "We need to warn the North," Jon said, his voice steady. "Not just about the dead, about me." Ned looked at him quiet. "If the lords of the North know I'm a Targaryen," Jon continued, They might turn on me. They might see me as a threat. They might, Ned admitted. But they also might follow you. Sam looked up, shocked. Follow him? He's not just blood of the dragon, Ned said. He's blood of the wolf, Lyanna's son, my sister's boy. John shook his head. They won't care about that, not when they remember what dragons did to the north, what Mad Eris did. You're not him, Viola said suddenly, and people will see that. Some, anyway. Sam laid a scroll on the table. Then you'll have to show them, do what no lord, no king has done since the first men. What? John asked. Unite the wildlings and the north? Ned frowned. That's impossible. They've hated each other for centuries. Exactly, Sam said. If you can bring them together, they'll believe you can do the impossible again. Beat the White Walkers. John stared at the map. The wall wasn't just stone anymore. It was the edge of history, and he had to cross it again. 3 days later, the gates of Castle Black opened to a strange procession. Wildlings, thousands of them. Mance Rayder, the so-called King Beyond the Wall, led them down the King's Road, banners made from bones and hides flapping in the wind. Beside him rode Tormund Giantsbane, grinning like a wolf in heat, and behind them, a sea of rough, hard-eyed people with nothing left to lose. John met them at the gate. You look softer than I remember, Tormund called. And you look worse, John shot back, smirking. They clasped arms, warriors, not friends, but bound now by something heavier than respect. Mance dismounted and approached John and Ned. So, he said, glancing between them, this is the part where we pretend we don't hate each other? No, John replied. This is the part where we try not to die. Mance snorted. Fair enough. John addressed the crowd. You've all heard the stories. You've all seen the dead. They're not coming for one side of the wall. They're coming for life. If we stand alone, we fall. But if we stand together, he looked around. If we stand together, we fight. A few murmured. Some sneered. But others, especially the younger ones, nodded. Mance stepped beside him. If he's lying, we'll burn him alive. And if I'm not, John replied, we'll all burn anyway. In Winterfell, Robb Stark stood on the battlements, holding his father's letter. The message was clear, but heavy. John is alive. He's not my brother. He's Rhaegar's son. Catelyn stood beside him, her lips a tight line. We can't trust him, she said. Targaryen blood is a curse. He's still my cousin, Robb said. He fought beside us, bled with us. He's a threat to your crown. I never wanted a crown, Robb said. I wanted justice. And now we need to decide what matters more, old grudges or survival. Behind them, Bran stirred in his bed for the first time in weeks, his eyes fluttered open. At the wall, John walked the courtyard late at night. Snow still fell, but he no longer felt it. Viola walked beside him, quiet as ever. You're not sleeping, she said. I can't, John muttered. Too many enemies. Too many memories. You think you're a king now? No, he said. But I might have to act like one. She looked at him carefully. Then act like one who doesn't forget where he came from, John nodded. I don't. But neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows, wrapped in black, boots silent as death. The assassin Cersei sent had arrived, and in the darkness he smiled. Beyond the wall the storm had broken. The White Walkers had reached the first watchtower. Its fires had long gone out. And as the Night King stepped through the broken gates, he reached out with one pale hand and touched the ice. It cracked, shattered, and a scream echoed across the frozen land. Not from the dead, but from the thing that woke beneath the ice, something older, something darker. The wind was still over Castle Black, eerily quiet as dawn tried to pierce the gray sky. Snowflakes fell slowly, lazily, like the world was trying to delay what was coming. Jon Snow stood atop the wall, his breath fogging the air. Below, thousands of wildlings moved, pitching tents, sharpening blades, waiting for a war that had no mercy to offer. Beside them, brothers of the Night's Watch watched in silence, uncertain if they stood beside allies or future enemies. He had done what no one thought possible, brought together two peoples long divided by blood and fear, but it had cost him peace, and it would soon cost more. He didn't hear the man approach until the blade was already drawn. The assassin moved like smoke, face covered in black cloth, his dagger already raised. Ghost growled from the stairs too late. John turned just in time to see the flash of steel. But the blade never reached him. Ned Stark's sword slammed into the attacker's wrist, shattering bone. The dagger fell to the stone floor with a sharp clang. The assassin lunged, a second knife drawn, but Ned was already moving. His blade pierced the man's chest and held him there, face to face, until the life drained from his eyes. They let the body fall. John stood frozen, stunned. Ned wiped the blade clean. "Cersei," he said. "Had to be." John nodded slowly. "She knows." "She fears you," Ned added. "Good. That means you matter." But John was staring at the dead man, not with fear, but understanding. "This won't stop," he said. "As long as I live, there will be someone else, always." "Then we don't run," Ned said. "We make them afraid to chase us." 2 days later, the first scream came at night. A ranger's horn split the air. Once, then again. Then, 3 blasts. White Walkers. The gate slammed shut. Men scrambled to arms. Wildlings rushed to walls. The night lit up with torches and panic. John ran through the snow, Ghost at his side, sword already in hand. "They're here!" Sam shouted, breathless. "The eastern tower, it's gone, just gone." John didn't hesitate. "Get everyone behind the gates, light the trenches." Ned joined him. "You lead." "I'll hold the inner gate." "Father, I told you, you were meant to survive." John gripped his forearm. They didn't have time for more. Then the wall shook. A deep, cold roar echoed over the trees, and from the mist came a shadow, a beast of ice and bone taller than any man. A white draconic form, dead wings stretched wide. A white dragon. John's heart sank. It started. The battle was chaos. The undead poured through cracks in the trench where fire had failed to catch. Arrows fell like rain, swords clashed, screams tore the sky. John fought like a man possessed, cutting through whites, shielding wildlings, dragging fallen brothers to safety. Atop the wall, Vila stood beside a burning brazier, launching fire jars down on the enemy. She saw the dragon rise again, mouth glowing blue. She didn't flinch. She ran straight toward the horns. In the courtyard, Ned cut down another walker, ice cracking under his blade. Then he saw it, a shadow moving behind John. Another assassin. This one wasn't Cersei's. This one wore black armor, blue eyes, and skin like frost, a White Walker commander. It raised its blade silently, moving through the carnage like a ghost. Ned shouted, "John!" John turned. The blades clashed. Ice met Valyrian steel. The clash shook the very stones. John fought hard, fast, but the walker was stronger, faster. It moved like a storm. But John had something more. He had fire inside him. He dodged a final swing, pivoted, and drove Longclaw through the creature's chest. The walker shattered into shards of ice. Everything stopped. For one heartbeat, the army of the dead hesitated. Then, all at once, they shrieked and retreated, back into the woods, gone. Hours passed. The wounded were tended. The dead burned. John sat by the fire, bloodied and silent. Vela sat beside him. "You saw it," she said. "The one with the crown of ice. He didn't fight. He just watched." John nodded. "The Night King. He was waiting for something," she whispered. "No," John said quietly. "He was waiting for someone." Ned joined them, face grim. "We lost 100, he said. "Could have been worse, should have been worse." "They were testing us," John said. "Next time, they don't stop." Ned put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we don't either." In King's Landing, a raven landed on Cersei's balcony. She read the scroll, her hands trembling. "Jon Snow lives. The dead attacked the wall. They were pushed back. But at the bottom, in strange, careful handwriting, he is more than fire. He is winter itself." Cersei crushed the scroll in her hand. "If the North won't kill him," she whispered, "then I will." And far in the deep, dead north, beneath the ice and bones of forgotten kings, the Night King stood before a frozen pool. Inside it, something stirred. Something ancient. Not dead. Not alive. Just waiting. He looked south, and for the first time in centuries, he smiled.